What was crazy was when I found out that Party Up was the answer to calling out names.
Facts. And
that's what Drake should have did.
And it was a hit record.
Killed two of his bodyguards. They're trying to kill him. Killed two of his bodyguards. They blamed it on me because he made a song about me. Even though nobody really heard the song.
You an issue actually over her? Oh, so X was messing with her when y'all together.
Back in the late 90s, Kurupt dropped a fiery diss track called Calling Out Names, and he wasn't holding back. He took shots at DMX and Foxy Brown, accusing DMX of stepping into his business with Foxy. Just a few months later, DMX fired back in his own way with a club anthem that secretly packed a punch.
Don't whack, you know, being that he made a song about me, I had to be the one doing it. I'm not pissed off at a whack record.
Party Up in Here, turning dance floors into battlegrounds. It all kicked off in 1999 when Kurupt let loose Calling Out Names.
So, you know, when you're grown, you got to put away childish things. You know, I had an issue with DMX.
Right.
And
about some serious
yeah, we squashed that.
The title said it all. No filters, no holding back. He directly called out several rappers, but one line caught everyone's attention. He rapped, "Foxy got you hot because you kept your face in her lap." The streets instantly started buzzing, saying that line was a clear shot at DMX. Before this, Kurupt and Foxy Brown had been an open couple, showing off their relationship in public. But after the breakup, things got messy. Rumors flew that Foxy was now seeing DMX.
No one knows this, but the reason why Kurupt ever found out anything about DMX having a crush or liking me was through her.
And whether that was real or not, Kurupt wasn't having it. He felt totally disrespected. Instead of keeping it private or settling quietly, he took it to wax and made it a public showdown. Naming names was bold, and once it hit the streets, everyone was talking. DMX didn't respond right away. He stayed silent, cool, and focused. But when he finally clapped back, he did it in the most unexpected way, through a party banger. A few months later, he dropped Party Up in Here, and at first, it just sounded like a hype track made for the clubs. But those who knew the backstory caught the hidden message right away. When DMX barked, "Y'all gonna make me lose my mind up in here," it hit different. To the casual listener, it was just another catchy hook. But to fans in the know, that line felt like a direct shot at Kurupt. Smooth, smart, and savage. The timing said it all. DMX didn't just respond, he flipped the whole beef into a hit. DMX definitely heard that diss, and when he responded, he did it his own way. Cool, calculated, and powerful. What started as a messy breakup had now exploded into a full-on rap feud. After Kurupt dropped Calling Out Names, things between him and DMX got way deeper than just music beef. It started to feel personal. Kurupt and Foxy Brown weren't just some casual fling. They were a real thing. They were seen together all the time, and Kurupt even talked about her openly in interviews. So once that relationship fell apart and rumors started flying that Foxy was now getting close to DMX, Kurupt took it to heart.
You actually over her?
Totally.
Oh, so X was messing with her when y'all together?
Totally.
Damn.
He wasn't seeing it just as another tabloid rumor. To him, DMX had crossed a serious line. For Kurupt, this wasn't about rap bragging rights or ego battles. It felt like a straight-up betrayal. Instead of letting it slide or settling it behind closed doors, he turned his anger to music and went straight to the mic. Calling Out Names wasn't subtle, not even a little bit. He came right out and mentioned DMX and Foxy Brown by name, leaving zero room for confusion. The track hit the streets in the late 90s and the industry went wild. People listened closely, not just for the bars, but because of who was involved. DMX was at the top of his game then, ruling the charts with back-to-back albums that took over the rap world. His name was everywhere, so when Kurupt threw shots his way, it instantly became one of the most talked about beefs in hip-hop. But DMX didn't play by the same rules. He didn't jump into interviews or make a public statement about it. He stayed quiet. That silence made fans even more curious. Everyone started picking apart his next songs, trying to figure out if he'd respond on wax. And then came Party Up in Here, a wild, high-energy track that became one of his biggest hits ever.
All right, first of all, there is no conflict with Kurupt. You know, sometimes
Even though DMX never dropped names, some listeners swore a few lines were meant for Kurupt. That now iconic bar, "Y'all gonna make me lose my mind up in here," hit like a warning shot. Fans felt like it carried the heat of that hidden tension, even though DMX never confirmed it. Intentional or not, the timing and tone made everyone think, was he talking to Kurupt through a club anthem? The mystery only made the whole feud sound even louder. The timing of Party Up had everyone talking. Fans couldn't ignore how perfectly it lined up with the tension between DMX and Kurupt. It felt too close to be a coincidence. And the fact that DMX never addressed it directly only added to the mystery.
He killed two of his bodyguards. They're trying to kill him. Killed two of his bodyguards. They blamed it on me because he made a song about me. Even though nobody really heard this.
Behind the scenes, people in the industry started quietly choosing sides. It wasn't some headline-making feud, but there was definitely a silent divide. Even producers and collaborators started stepping back, not wanting to get caught in the middle of something that felt personal and unpredictable. After that, things cooled down. At least publicly. There were no more diss tracks flying back and forth, no fiery interviews spilling secrets, just distance. As time passed, the situation stayed unresolved. Neither one of them made a public truce, but they also never reignited the drama. It all became part of hip-hop history. One diss track, one quiet response, and a personal grudge that lingered in the shadows of two major careers. At the heart of it all was Foxy Brown. Kurupt and Foxy had a real relationship back in the late 90s. No rumors, no speculation. Kurupt himself confirmed in interviews that they were actually engaged. People in the industry knew they were together, and they showed up as a couple everywhere. It was no secret. But once their relationship ended, whispers started flying that Foxy was hanging out with DMX. Nobody ever got solid proof, no photos, no official statements, but the gossip wouldn't go away. Kurupt believed that something must have happened between Foxy and DMX while he and Foxy were still close, and that's what pushed him over the edge. In his mind, both of them crossed the line. Instead of keeping it quiet, he took it straight to the booth and let every bit of that frustration fly on calling out names. That was his way of making it clear he felt betrayed by people he once trusted. Years later, Kurupt opened up about why he went after DMX by name. He said it wasn't just about jealousy, it was about respect. In his eyes, DMX should have kept his distance, especially since they were part of the same rap circle and had mutual respect in the game. For Kurupt, it wasn't about just Foxy. It was about loyalty, boundaries, and pride. But Foxy Brown, though, stayed completely silent through it all. She never responded to the diss, never spoke on Kurupt's comments, and never publicly addressed the situation. DMX also kept his lips sealed, staying focused on his music and career. Neither of them ever fueled the fire, which left the public to fill in the blanks themselves. Some fans believed it was all a huge misunderstanding blown out of proportion, while others were convinced it ran deeper than anyone ever admitted. The truth is, still a mystery, but one that left a lasting mark on hip-hop's wildest era. Since nobody ever came forward to clear things up, the story stayed exactly how it began. One side spoken, the other side silent. Whatever went down between Kurupt and Foxy Brown was never mended in public. By the early 2000s, both had moved on with their lives. Foxy kept her focus on her career, new music, and fresh relationships, while Kurupt stayed active in the rap game, but stopped addressing that drama altogether. It was one of those moments that showed how real-life heartbreak could spill straight into the booth. And once it hit a track, it became part of hip-hop history forever. Even if the full truth never came out, the tension was immortalized in rhyme. After calling out names dropped, everything went quiet for a bit. DMX didn't jump out with a response right away. No diss track, no interviews, no fiery statements, just silence. But a few months later, he came back with a bang when he dropped Party Up in Here, a high-energy club anthem that had everyone jumping. On the surface, it sounded like a wild party record with a huge hook, but those who listened closely started catching something deeper.
Favorite diss track of all time?
Mine?
That's different.
Mine was DMX. What he did to Kurupt. You know I like Kurupt, but the way DMX he deciphered him.
The line that caught everyone's ear was, "Y'all gonna make me lose my mind up in here." Fans instantly connected that to the tension with Kurupt, but it didn't stop there. Later in the song, DMX dropped more bars that had people thinking he was saying more than just random rhymes. He rapped, "If it wasn't for the Bronx, this rap thing probably never would be going on. So tell me where you from."
From, like he said, you gonna be staring at the rooftop. Like, damn, of the church. I said, damn. He described a painted picture of how he would murder and you know what I'm saying? And your people telling the truth and it hurts. Damn, DMX, do you really gotta do him like that? You know? So DMX is one of my, you know what I'm saying, to
That sounded general enough, just showing love to hip-hop roots. But then came the line that set off the whispers again. You whack, you twisted, your girl's a, you broke, the kids ain't yours, and everybody knows. Your old man said you stupid, you be like, so? I love my baby mother, I never let her go. That verse had fans and writers connecting the dots fast. Some believe DMX was firing back at Kurupt, especially because of how it mirrored Kurupt's own bar in calling out names about Foxy Brown. Even though DMX never said names, the tone, timing, and content made it feel like a hidden reply, a lyrical way of saying, I heard you. Instead of going the traditional route and dropping a direct diss, DMX buried his response inside one of his biggest hits ever, slick and powerful. The song became an anthem, but beneath the radio success was a personal message, raw and strategic. Kurupt never clapped back publicly, and after that, the situation just faded out. To this day, many fans believe DMX ended the feud his way, quietly but decisively. But one thing was clear, Foxy Brown wasn't just some name caught in the mix. She had deep ties to both artists. Back in the late 90s, she and Kurupt was serious, publicly engaged, showing up together at events, walking red carpets, and working in the studio side by side. There was photos, footage, and interviews confirming it wasn't just industry talk, it was real. But as time went on, their relationship started to crumble. Nobody knows all the reasons why. It wasn't heavily documented, but the breakup was real. Around that same period, whispers started about Foxy spending time with DMX. Some people claimed the two had a romantic connection, while others said it was just a brief, casual thing. Either way, people in the hip-hop scene noticed the shift and kept talking. But for Kurupt, it cut deep. This wasn't just about rap competition or public image. It hit him personally. He wasn't just defending pride, he was reacting to something that stung emotionally.
It was over your ex? Or what was, is that what it was?
Yeah, you know, it was, I was in my feelings, and I was really just upset the whole experience with this young lady.
That pain poured straight into his track, Calling Out Names, where he let every bit of that frustration fly. He didn't hold back for a second, naming rappers one by one and leaving the entire industry buzzing. What started as a breakup turned into one of the most quietly explosive chapters in late 90s hip-hop, a mix of love, loyalty, and lyrical warfare that nobody ever fully explained. There was one line in Calling Out Names that left no room for guessing. It was clearly aimed at DMX and Foxy Brown.
Kurupt called out what he saw as betrayal, saying Foxy had moved from one man to another within the same circle. And he said it straight, no sugarcoating. It didn't matter to him that he and Foxy had already split. In his eyes, that move still crossed the line. The track spread fast across the rap world, making its way through studios, radio shows, and street corners in no time. Back then, calling someone out by name on a record was no small move. It meant war. Kurupt had taken something deeply personal and made it public. And since DMX was one of the names dropped, the tension could have exploded into something much bigger. Foxy Brown stayed completely quiet, never clapping back or even mentioning the situation publicly. DMX didn't address it directly either. No interviews, no statements, but everyone in the industry knew exactly what was going on. Those close to them paid attention to every lyric, every look, and every rumor. This wasn't about rap egos. This was about real emotion and real relationships. Kurupt was hurt, and instead of burying those feelings, he let them pour out in the booth. That diss wasn't made to start a lyrical war, it was a raw, emotional statement. The tension between Kurupt and DMX didn't begin over music. It started over a woman both men had deep ties to, Foxy Brown. Kurupt and Foxy weren't playing around. They were engaged, showing up at events together, looking solid and serious. He even spoke about her in interviews with pride. But once the relationship ended, the rumors shifted fast. Foxy started being seen around DMX. Nobody had official confirmation, but there were enough sightings and whispers for people to believe something was happening. To outsiders, it just looked like Foxy had moved on. But to Kurupt, it cut deeper than that. He and DMX weren't best friends, but they had crossed paths, shared mutual respect, and operated in the same space. So when Foxy started spending time with DMX, Kurupt saw it as a violation of respect and loyalty. In his eyes, that was a boundary you didn't cross. Not in the same circle, not in that way. What made it even intense was that DMX didn't come out and say anything, leaving the streets to fill in the blanks and fuel the tension. Instead of handling it privately, Kurupt took it to the mic, the one place he could speak his truth with no filter.
Passed away earlier this year.
Yeah.
It was over your ex? Or what was, is that what it was?
Yeah, you know, it was, I was in my feelings.
Calling Out Names wasn't just a diss song, it was therapy, frustration and heartbreak wrapped in verses. He didn't hide behind metaphors. He dropped names, expressed emotions, and made sure everyone understood where he stood. Meanwhile, DMX was already dealing with his own struggles and keeping his focus on music. He didn't throw a direct jab back at Kurupt, but when Party Up, Up in Here dropped, fans couldn't ignore the timing. The energy, the delivery, the tone, it all felt like an indirect response. It was as if DMX took the pain, flipped it, and turned it into a global anthem instead of a feud. So while Kurupt vented his heartbreak on wax, DMX answered through success. One man spoke from emotion, the other from dominance, and that silent tension between them stayed frozen in time, forever marked by two tracks that told the same story from opposite sides. DMX never mentioned any names, but the frustration in his lyrics had fans convinced it was a response. What made that moment stand out wasn't some flashy beef or fake industry stunt. It was how personal it felt. There was no planned battle, no back and forth war on wax. It was just one man feeling betrayed and another choosing silence over chaos. Later on, Kurupt opened up about that time in his life, admitting he was dealing with a lot behind the scenes. That honesty added new context to why he reacted the way he did. Eventually, the storm faded. No more diss tracks dropped, no physical confrontations. They simply kept their distance. Two legends moving on in different directions. But even without a public showdown, the tension left a lasting mark on hip-hop. Those who knew the backstory understood why it mattered. It wasn't about clout or publicity, it was about real-life emotions bleeding into the music. Once both songs, Calling Out Names and Party Up, hit the streets, the feud stopped right there. No interviews dragging names through the mud, no petty back and forths, just silence. Some fans believe DMX's hit was a clean, strategic response that ended things for good, but others thought Kurupt realized it wasn't worth stretching out the drama. With both men working in the same circles, same studios, same crews, somebody probably stepped in behind closed doors and said, "Let it go," and that's exactly what happened. By the early 2000s, both had moved on. DMX was dominating movies, stages, and tours, while Kurupt kept pushing with Thaw Dog Pound and his solo projects. They never did a public sit-down or made an official peace track, but they also never reignited the tension. It just faded quietly, like smoke after a fire. When the topic came up years later, it was mostly brushed off. Kurupt even admitted in an interview that he wasn't proud of naming names. He said he was young, emotional, and reacting out of pain, not logic. DMX, on the other hand, barely mentioned it again. He talked about many feuds in later interviews, but this one stayed in the background, proof that not every battle needs to be relived. So while the drama started loud, it ended in silence. No reunion, no apology record, just time doing what time always does, cooling everything down. Years later, when Kurupt was asked again about Calling Out Names, his tone was completely different. He admitted that dropping the track wasn't something he was proud of, explaining that he was going through a rough season personally and let his emotions take over. He even said naming specific people, especially DMX, wasn't the smartest move. He acknowledged that it wasn't about starting a rap beef, it came from pure frustration and heartbreak. Kurupt explained that during that time, he had been in a real relationship with Foxy Brown and he genuinely felt disrespected by what he believed happened afterwards. Instead of handling it quietly, he brought those emotions into the studio and turned them into bars. Looking back, he said he had nothing against DMX as a man and respected him deeply as an artist. According to Kurupt, there was never a personal fight, no face-to-face confrontation, no tension in the streets. It was all music, emotion, and timing. And once the moment passed, so did the feud. In later interviews, Kurupt reflected on how much life had changed since then. He said he'd grown older, wiser, and learned that not every wound needs a beat.
The reality of it is that we did squash our situation and became real good friends.
He even admitted that if he could go back, he would have handled things differently, with more calm and less impulse. So while Calling Out Names remains one of the rawest, most memorable moments of late 90s hip-hop, Kurupt made it clear in the years after he had let that chapter go. In the end, what began as a personal issue between Kurupt and Foxy Brown turned into a moment that pulled DMX into the crossfire of one of the most talked about diss records of its era. Calling Out Names was raw and emotional, but DMX chose not to answer with venom. Instead, he let Party Up do the talking. A subtle, powerful move that many saw as his way of shutting down the noise without ever getting dragged into a full-blown war. As time moved on, both artists kept grinding, both careers evolving, and that old drama just became another story in hip-hop's long, complicated timeline. No street beef, no ugly endings, just lessons learned and respect left intact. It's a perfect reminder that in hip-hop, not every feud ends with a battle. Some end with growth. The tension came and went, but what stayed was the music. Two timeless tracks born from raw emotion, now part of hip-hop history forever. That's the full story of Kurupt, DMX, and Calling Out Names. If you enjoyed this breakdown, make sure to like, subscribe, share, and drop a comment letting us know your thoughts. Who do you think handled it better, Kurupt or DMX? Let's talk about it in the comments.